Mike Bowers. I'm the director of the Ohio Small Business Development Center at Columbus State Community College. And I want to welcome you to this month's edition of Small Business Breakthroughs. This is a program where we have business experts come on, talk about different things that they feel are important for entrepreneurs as they build and grow their businesses. And this month, I'm super excited about having Iris Cooper on here today. I mean, she is a legend, I'll use that term, in the entrepreneurial space here in Central Ohio. And we're going to get to talk to her in just a few minutes. But before we start, we do this session in partnership with the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center, and I'm actually in the deck right now. I am in the Metro Conference Room, and today we are honored to have Susie Gillian representing the deck. Usually Chaz Frutel's here. I don't want to say that we're actually more excited to have Susie here than Chaz, but you know, that's kind of how it rolls. But anyway, looks like Susie's maybe in one of the deck offices. And Susie, you want to kind of give a little bit of an update on what's going on at the deck and you know, the value that the deck may be able to serve to some of these folks.
Sure. Yes, of course, Chaz's shoes are big shoes to fill, but I'm happy to be with you today. I am now the site manager here at the Dublin Entrepreneur Center, where we have roughly 100 businesses that are tenants here at the deck in Dublin. Over the course of the last 13 years, it's been a long-standing relationship with the SBDC and the City of Dublin to be the deck in Dublin. And we have over 100 businesses now, but I've actually graduated about 190 different businesses over the span of our time here, which is significant. So it's a collaborative small business community. Many of the tenants do business with each other. And whether they're startup businesses, small businesses, or mid-sized businesses, when they outgrow this space, they're considered graduates. And of those 190 businesses, more than 90% of them are still in business today. So it is a healthy small business environment to grow your business. And yes, I'm in one of the available offices here today. We've had kind of a flood of new tenants since the first of the year, but there still are some spaces available, starting as small as a hotspot. So you could come and go, but it gives you a mailing address, free use of conference rooms, and other bonuses like the copier and office space. So anyway, it's a blessing to be with you today. Thanks, Mike.
Great, thanks a lot. As I always say when we do this, I mean, there's a value to being at the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center, or really any of these kind of entrepreneurial spaces. You know, what I really like about them, obviously there's office space and there's addresses and things of that nature, but you know, it's this sense of community that allows you to connect with other entrepreneurs. You're basically sitting in a space with other folks with small businesses, and they're going through some of the similar things that you are. And I think that that's really a significant value. So I encourage anybody who has an interest in learning more about the deck. The website is deck, D-E-C, deckindublin.com. And we have Susie's put the address in. Susie, you want to put an email or something in there for folks that may want to contact. But like I said, just reach out, and Chaz or Susie or any of the team here is more than happy to kind of show you around. And there's other programming that's happening. I think that, you know, pre-pandemic, we used to do a lot of training programs here. We had a lot of different content here, and that's slowly starting to come back. And you know, this is one of the things that we do, but I think that I know we've got some plans for 2023, and we are also expecting to see, you know, some other different types of programming going on here too. So definitely reach out and, you know, touch base with Chaz or Susie, and you have an interest in what's going on here. So thank you guys for that. If you're not familiar with the Small Business Development Center program, Small Business Development Center program, or a grant funded program, we receive funds from the Small Business Administration. in the state of Ohio. We are part of Columbus State Community College here in Central Ohio, and our goal is to really support the entrepreneur. So that whether that be from, I have an idea and that's all I have, I need to make it a business. So, we work with folks that way. We have a pretty developed startup process, of which Bruce Walters, who's on here with us, is pretty active in. And we also work with existing businesses, so we can assist with funding and contracting, marketing, certification, all the types of things that can be a benefit to you. So I would highly encourage you to check out the SBDC if you haven't. Obviously, you registered here, so check out some of the other stuff that we have going on. Just very briefly, before we jump in here, the next Small Business Breakthrough will be March 23rd at 11:30. Still working on the guest, but I'm sure that it will be an amazing guest, because they all have been. But I do want to mention that on March 9th, we have a new program that we're doing. It's called, I believe, Entrepreneur Spotlight. And Bruce Walters, I mentioned earlier, he's very active with that program. But I will be interviewing a small business owner from the deck here, TJ Johnson from Trabian Enterprises. She's been in business for the past 9 years, and been through a lot of the trials and tribulations and successes of being a small business owner. And I'm excited to have the opportunity to speak to her coming up. So March 9th, you can register, on our website to come check it out live. And just like Small Business Breakthroughs, if you can't make it live, it is going to be on our YouTube channel. So be sure to check that out. So now let's jump in. Let's get to why everybody's here. Iris Cooper is joining us today. We are, again, really pleased to have Iris as part of what we're doing. I've known Iris for a number of years. I think, Iris, we met back in the day when I think you were with the state when I first met you. And it is, I've been impressed with the things you did, prior to that. And since then, just a quick piece, Iris is currently involved in a number of different projects, but she has an entrepreneurial coaching firm called JustAskIris. She specializes in food enterprises and other small firms and different things like that. So we are happy to have you here. And Iris, why don't you start out, give us a little bit of your background, some of the things that you've been involved in, some of the things that you're kind of working on now, and then maybe we can jump into some other pieces.
Well, thank you, Mike, and thank you all for joining us today. I kind of feel like I'm on Broadway, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all and kind of tell you about my journey. Am I in the center of the screen, or do I need to move to the right or the left? Not sure how it looks.
No, you're right on.
Okay, well, good. Well, let me see. I'm going to tell you I think the really interesting things about me, and there are about 4 that I want to share with you.
I'm sure there's more, but that's okay.
Well, my entrepreneurship journey actually started on the corner of Baird Park and Evans in Evansville, Indiana, where I had the most lucrative lemonade stand of the entire neighborhood as a child. My parents were both part-time entrepreneurs. They had day jobs, but they believed in spreading out the risk. And so my father had a catering business at night, and my mother was the first African-American Avon lady in Evansville, Indiana. But my father taught my brother and I that you really do have to spread the risk, and that you need to have a basket full of actions that you can deploy if you need income. So they always encouraged us to have a skill, but also have some backup activities that you can use just in case you run into a COVID or you run into an illness or something like that. You have something else to fall back on. I went to school in Bloomington, Indiana at a edifice called Indiana University. I have a degree in journalism, and I also have an MBA in marketing. And the second interesting action in my life is that my marketing distributions professor back in the day was a man named Charles Lazarus. And if you are from Central Ohio, you do remember the Lazarus retail chain. Well, he used to fly over from Columbus to Bloomington to teach in the MBA program. And I kind of stood out being the only Black female, the only female in the class in graduate school. And after the semester was over, he offered me a job. And he sent his private jet to Bloomington, Indiana to pick me up. And do you think I thought I was royalty? I really did. I really did. Mm-hmm. I got off at the corner when I took the cab downtown to Town and High. And I thought I had died and gone to heaven coming from Evansville, Indiana. We had Sears Roebuck and Kresge's, and I mean, the mannequins told me to come on in. So I learned retailing from the back room to the front offices in that facility. And after about 6 months of training, he said, I want you to be the marketing manager of the restaurant division. 7 restaurants in the downtown store and 3 in the branches. This is old school retailing. Again, the only female in the group. And I'll tell you, there were some male restaurant managers that did not like what Charles Lazarus was doing. However, he stood by me, and we were very successful in our marketing efforts in spite of some opposition. But from that stop, I moved to, when Federated took over Lazarus and made everything kind of uniform, I moved into banking with an opportunity with a bank in California called Security Pacific Bank. And it eventually was purchased by Bank of America, but they had a training program that I joined. And I learned, again, banking from the inside out. And this is an era when you had to be on that teller line and talk to people and network. And yes, I probably gave away a lot of money trying to cash checks. And it could be stressful on a Friday at 3 o'clock. But I know banking as a teller, all the way up to being a senior commercial loan officer. And for you ladies, I cast checks for Nick Nolte and Mr. T. And that's probably why I got confused and gave away a lot of money, because I was probably drooling over all the stars that came into the branch. But in any event, I learned banking, and I loved banking because I loved people. And eventually came back to Central Ohio and spent about 20 years with Society Bank, which turned into Key Bank. Loved it, absolutely loved High Street and Town Street and going knocking on doors. And I had a mentor as a boss who believed in me named Bob Jones. And Bob and I got to be so close as friends and colleagues that he said to me, Iris, if you trust this person, then put my name on it. Now, that kind of relationship is rare right now with technology. That's kind of what has happened to damage personal relationships, I think. But that's what he told me, and we are still close. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be visiting him in 2 weeks in my hometown of Evansville, Indiana. where he became the president of the largest bank there. And he nominated me for the Hall of Fame for Evansville public school graduates. So I have to go down there and represent Bossy High School. But fast forward, I learned from every one of my clients, and food was a niche for me. Not that I could cook. I don't cook. I love the fact that you can microwave food now, but I learned from entrepreneurs the food industry, and they became kind of a niche in my lending portfolio. And so I stayed in banking about 20 years, but then I branched off since then to be an entrepreneur myself, doing consulting. I do business plans, I do marketing research, something that I stress to entrepreneurs that don't jump out there without the information. This world is changing by the minute. And what you relied on last week may not be relevant anymore. So I really stress that with my clients. I'm just looking forward to a new era using technology, but also trying to integrate that personal touch that I think is weak right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, congratulations on the Hall of Fame in Evansville. That's certainly deserved. And like I said, I mean, I've been, involved in the space here for a long time, and I've watched, the contributions that you've made, and I think that that's what's really important, because I know that you step up and you assist entrepreneurs and help individuals and different things like that. And I think that's really important. And I want to touch on a couple of things, but I want to kind of take a quick step back and ask you to talk about kind of your story, your connection with Glory Foods, because you're one of the first people in there. And that's a true success story, and you were right in the middle of it.
And Glory Foods is an idea that was birthed on Main Street in Bexley when I was the commercial loan officer at the Society Bank branch there. My colleagues from the food business at Lazarus, who gave me grief while I was there, they found me because they came to me and said, Iris, we want to start a food business, and we want to do soul food. And their idea was to just put greens in a can and black-eyed peas in a can and seal it and sell it. And as a new mom trying to manage a family and come home in the evening and try to put a meal on the table, especially when I absolutely loathe cooking, was not easy. And I said, well, if you want to give me more work to do when I get off from the bank, I'm not interested. And I said, I think I can speak for a lot of women who were in the workforce and trying to manage families at the time, that we don't need any more work. We need something that's going to be convenient. And thank God they invented the microwave. That was like the 4th of July for a lot of us at the time. But I told them to go and find a process that we could use to pre-season vegetables with the soul food flavoring, seal the can, and cook them in mass. I said, because if you put another Me Too black-eyed pea can in Kroger, it's not going to work. Nobody's interested in that. And in the meantime, I traveled around the nation and talked to women about what the policies and practices were in the kitchen those days. What time do you get off work? How much time do you need to prepare food? Do you always have to have a meat with your meal? I asked them every question I could think of that would impact mealtime. And the consensus was that we don't need any more work. We need something that we can get done in minutes, that tastes good and nutritious and reflects our culture. So when I came back from that journey, I went to make a presentation to Kroger. My babysitter's nephew was a buyer at Kroger, and he got me an appointment. So my colleague, Bill Williams, and I went out to Kroger, their headquarters. And folks, just keep in mind, no microfiche, no PowerPoint. I didn't even have a handout back then. But I walked into this room full of men, and I just started, I think what I tend to do best is tell stories and connect with people. And I told them about the process in the kitchen and what we had determined from this marketing research, and that we would like Kroger to partner with us. So there was silence in the room, and I started sweating. And then one of the men got up and said, "We're going to send you a purchase order." And I said, "Thank you very much." And Bill and I walked out, and we sat down on a bench outside Kroger and said, "Wow, what are we going to do now? We don't even have the product now. We just have an idea, a proposal." But Kroger waited for us about, I'd say, a year to get that process down pat. And we worked with the Ohio State Food Technology Center to help us come up with this process that would, you put the seasonings in the can with the vegetables and seal the can, and then they would cook like 100 cans in a big machine. In a year, we opened at Parsons and Livingston. And we had, it was just like the 4th of July. It was a wonderful day. And so Glory Foods is still in existence. We sold the company to the farmers in 2020, but I think it still reflects the pride and the heritage of African-American people and people from the South that's still so popular. So that's the story of Glory Foods, and I'm glad to say it's still in existence.
Yeah, absolutely. Couple of things. Anybody who has a question, go ahead and put them in the chat, because Bruce and I are watching that, and we'll try to get those. So if you have a question for Iris, go ahead and throw it in the chat. But I want to talk about that, because what's interesting to me about that is that the way you approach that is really from trying to determine what the audience wants. So it wasn't just, you mentioned kind of this kind of another Me Too kind of product. You know, there's 1,000 of these kind of products out there. Whereas you said, okay, we don't need to do that. What we want to do is figure out what would our audience want, and then try to come up with that. And I think that that's unfortunately kind of missing a lot of times today. The other thing that was interesting that you mentioned is that you had the idea, you had the market research. So you knew when you went into Kroger kind of what the need was, but you didn't have the product yet. And I think a lot of people get kind of backed around there where, hey, here's my product, but I don't know who's going to buy it. And then the the buyer or Kroger or whoever it is like, okay, well, I don't know, that's, you haven't convinced me that there's something there. You just have a product and you have things like that. So talk a little bit more about this, because there is a question in the chat regarding market research and types of market research and stuff like that. Talk a little bit about, your experience going beyond there, your experience in banking, things you were looking at as it related to market research, because understanding your customer and your market and what they want, I think, is the most critical piece of the whole.
I can't stress that enough, because entrepreneurs tend to have kind of big egos, and sometimes they don't want to listen to the facts that are in front of them.
Right.
And I preach that you've got to know your target customer like you know your best friend. You got to know their age. You got to know where they live. You got to know what are their favorite colors. You have to know what their family size is. You've got to really embrace marketing research so that you are an expert on your target customer. Entrepreneurs tend not to do that because it's time consuming and it may contradict what they think and they're afraid of that. But you can't, I would not advise anyone to launch a product or service until they had developed a relationship with that target customer so that you know as much about them as you possibly can. How they're going to react. Who knew how people were going to react to the price of $3.50 eggs? Who knew?
Right.
But I can guarantee you, if you ask people now, they're not happy about it. So you've got to stay close to that target customer. And I think I learned that from banking too. I think I can honestly say I was the first Black female commercial loan officer in Columbus, Ohio, back in the day. And the people in Bexley just embraced me, and I loved going door to door and going to their businesses and everything. And I learned that you've got to get past those stereotypes about people and get to their personality, their soul, get to know them. And it worked for me in banking.
Let me ask you this. So when you were doing this research with Glory Food, I mean, talk a little bit about kind of your process. I mean, you had to kind of, it wasn't the tech piece. You had to go out and touch them. You had to talk to them and try to translate that, what you did there, translate that to today. How would you do it today? Is there anything different? I mean, the technology piece is there. And I think a lot of people lean on that. They don't want to talk to them. They're afraid to talk to them. They're afraid to, like you said, maybe they're going to find out something that they don't want to hear.
Right.
That actually ultimately would help them. So talk about, kind of some of the things you did, but how would that translate to today?
Well, certainly technology is a part of it now, because just like we're on Zoom now, we didn't have Zoom back in the day. We had a conference room table and some chairs and me taking notes or a tape recorder. But I do think that that you can't replace that personal relationship. So now we can use Zoom, but I think you still have to have a connection to that person that's on Zoom. They have to be what you believe is your target customer. We knew that Glory Foods was a part of the kitchen cooking process, just like all vegetables. And so I sought out women from age group of, let's say, 25 to 50, who were still going in the kitchen and cooking. And I also sought out Southern women, because they're the culture that created the seasoning that goes into Glory Foods. And I kept my opinion out of it until I got the information. It's important for you as a business owner to realize that you've got to be objective about facts and statistics. Of course, you're going to be partial about what you're doing. And that's a good thing. You believe in yourself. That's a good thing. But when the numbers and the facts contradict what you're doing, you've got to pivot, as they say. You've got to change. And it's important that you know that customer from inside out before you go into business.
Yeah. So one of the things in the chat, Giovanna Robinson asked, she apparently has an existing market. She's been in business, the market's established. She said, I'm already in business and have customers who shop with me, but what tactics would you recommend that she employ to learn more about them?
Call them. Invite them to lunch. Go have a cup of coffee. Right now, people are so hungry to meet people and to get out from the COVID prison we've been in. I look forward to talking to my customers in person. So take advantage of this beautiful day. Call somebody up. Say, can I stop by and talk to you? Just get to know them again. There's no replacement for that personal relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Jimmy Mitchell, who has, you probably know Jimmy, who has a line of spices and sauces and things.
Mm-hmm.
He says, one, he's got a very large market. But what are some strategic marketing strategies you would recommend? And I think that a lot of people get wrapped up into I have this large market, which everybody eats. So, it's a large market, but you really want to try to narrow that down and get a little bit more specific and, really understand what they're doing, but you want to narrow down what you're trying to do.
You can't be all things to all people and do it well.
Yeah.
You're going to step on somebody's toes or neglect somebody or forget about somebody. So be clear about that number one customer, who they are, where they are, and stay in touch with them just like you would your best friend as much as possible. Cater to them. And I guarantee you it will spill over into other people that they talk to. But don't try to be everything to all people. It's not going to work. It's expensive too, trying to market all those different people. Have one message, and that will cross over into other segments of your market. That's what happened with Glory Foods. People didn't even know about soul food, wanted to know what it was. And so now it's just a main feature at Kroger, along with Vandicamps and everybody else.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of questions about your thoughts on trying to then connect and get into some of the large retailers. I mean, what are your thoughts? You talked about, your experience with that. Again, what are some of your thoughts maybe you'd use with some of your current clients to help them get into and make an impact in with large retailers?
You can't start off large. I wouldn't at this point. Now, keep in mind, I had a connection into Kroger. I didn't know anybody in that room, but as I said, my babysitter's grandnephew worked there. So if you've got some contacts, certainly use them, but I wouldn't recommend going startup into Macy's. I wouldn't do that. I would go to a smaller establishment and work out any kind of challenges that you might have. And a lot of the retailers now have diversity and inclusion movements that you can connect to. But beyond all that, get your product, work out any kind of challenges that you have those same people that were in your test market, try it, see what they say about it before you jump out there, because it's better wait and get as close to perfect as you can rather than to go in and have it just be a disaster.
Absolutely. Let's shift a little bit, and I just want to talk about banking. I want to talk about banking in 2023. You and I were in banking years ago. I'm like you. I started out, I was on a teller line on a Friday afternoon.
Yep.
It was a
nightmare.
Yeah. But back in the day, I think we both had experiences with it was, you had business, you had customers, but it was about a lot more of the credibility of the individual. It was that, we talk about the 5 C's. It's that, that credibility of the individual and things of that nature. Whereas today, I think there's in a lot of places, there's a shift to, the credit scoring and, fill out the app and they're going to send it to underwriters wherever.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with that? I mean, what are your thoughts on dealing with banking in this current environment?
Technology is a process that has the good in it, it has the bad in it, and it can be a nightmare if your personal credit history gets screwed up along the way. You're not going to get past the bank without working on that credit score. I know it's a number, I know it doesn't tell all the story, but technology is the way that banks run right now. That doesn't eliminate the opportunity to get to know the business banker in your neighborhood. And don't go and ask them for money right off the bat. Go in there and introduce yourself. Take your product in there. Ask them would they'd like to try it. I think that's the way I would approach it. As I said, after the COVID prison, there's an opportunity to rekindle. If there's an opportunity to develop new personal relationships, as a customer at the bank, take it. Go for it.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, we have this kind of mix, and it's been this way for a while, but I mean, we've had this kind of mix. You've got the big, large banks, and then you've got more of some of the community banks. We've been pretty successful in working with credit unions because, again, you know, that's kind of member-based, different things like that. You know, the importance, there's still an importance. I don't care if you're dealing with Chase or if you're dealing with the, you know, the bank down on the corner, to have that relationship. And you have a great point, because if you go in, you start your business and you go in and launch your business checking account, that helps you toward building credibility. And, you know, yeah, you still got to have the credit score. So get that cleaned up, because if you don't have that, you're not going to get through the door. But if you got that, you've got some history, kind of know some people. I think it's really valuable, even in this day of, you know, credit scores and tech and all that kind of thing.
Absolutely. There's no replacement for a smile or handshake. It's just no replacement for it. And to be able to say, hey, how you doing? And it's so refreshing when you're trying to establish a relationship, to really get to the person behind the desk. Absolutely.
Just a quick step back. Catherine Jones put up a thing in the chat about Keller Market House in Lancaster as a local grocery that, you know, could be a great opportunity if you've got a food-based product to kind of test it out, you know, get it in there. Because if you can go in and sell there, or you can go to Hills, or you can go to some of these other places and get them and show that there's something going on with your business, then going to Kroger's, it's going to be a lot easier.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, so as far as the thought process again on banking, you work with a lot of folks now, in terms of helping them with their strategy and business plan and different things like that. You know, again, we've talked about market research, but I think that when we're talking about business plans, I think there's still sometimes with entrepreneurs that really haven't done this kind of thing before, haven't gone after funding. They don't understand. They think that, okay, I just need to fill out the blanks I'll go down, download the template, and I fill out the blanks and I'm good. But I don't have this, I don't have the knowledge of the market. I don't have the story to put into that. And what are your experience in terms of putting together these business plans?
It's a mistake to launch a product or service, again, not knowing that target customer inside and out, and doing the homework to introduce your product with facts and information, compelling information, to anyone that you want to invest in your company. Now, I'll tell you this, like I said, entrepreneurs have egos with a capital E, and they don't want to know what they don't know. Sometimes as a banker, I used to have to sit them down and say, this is not personal. I'm not attacking you as an individual. I'm telling you that there's something missing in your story. If I ask you, where are the majority of your customers shopping now, or the people that you want as your customers, and you say, well, I don't know. Well, doggone it. Why don't you excuse yourself and go out and find out where those customers are? You have to impress the banker, because they're the ones that have to put their names on the line when the money goes out the door. And I had some wonderful relationships with my clients to this day. And I haven't been in banking for a while. I am still close to those individuals that told me the truth, and I told them the truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Everything isn't going to be, and they lived happily ever after. We understand that. So you've got to trust them, and they'll trust you.
You mentioned earlier about, taking the product and really trying to tailor that to the audience. Bruce Walters, Tanya Wilson on my team, they were discussing the other day, they've got a lot of folks that are coming in to see them who just want to take an existing product and let me tack on something, or let me, here's a service that's being offered and let me tack on another service or something like that. And I think that a lot of times they don't have that understanding of the market. They just see it as, oh, well, I think this would work.
Mm-hmm.
And the person sitting here, so let's tack on something else.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's, again, it's, I don't know that works super well unless you've really validated it with your customer, because again, here's the primary part of the service, which is a Me Too kind of everything's being offered all over the place. And let me tack on something on top of that, may or may not move the needle.
And I think there's certain niche products that works for, like condiments, maybe.
Yeah.
But a vegetable is a vegetable, and you can put seasoning in it, but you can't make it into something that it's not. So it depends on the product, I think. You can't take dairy and do much with it. Maybe it's those Me Too products that you can do that with, like something you add on a meat or top off something with, but I would still send them back to show me the market, show me the numbers for the market.
Absolutely. So I told you this was going to fly by. So
Is it over? No, we just got started.
I know, but I want to talk just real quick about your thoughts on just business in 2023. You and I've talked about this. I mean, again, back in the day, there was a lot more of this kind of, I don't know, I'm going to use the term ethical practices in business. There was kind of a right and a wrong. And I think that in part that because there was not this intermediary of technology. I mean, if I'm not doing things right, or if I'm, kind of playing games with the numbers or taking money from Peter to pay Paul and, to keep my business open, ultimately I'm going to be in front of somebody who's been impacted. I think with technology, I think people kind of tend to hide behind that and think they can maybe play some games with stuff. What are your thoughts about, again, this kind of transition, but this thought about, ethics and different things in business now?
There's no replacement for ethical behavior, period. I think we've gotten away from doing things, as I say, with the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And we've got to get back to that, whether it's entrepreneurship or law or whatever. It is just too much going on in the world right now that just can't be categorized as anything but wrong. You've got to start your relationships off on the right path and keep them that way. And if you have to go to your banker or your accountant and say, I've had a rough year, and these are my numbers, and I'm going to show a loss. A banker will understand that. I'm sure that bankers after COVID expected their customers to come forward and say, look, I couldn't sell. I couldn't get in front of my customer. And if you don't tell the truth, it will come out. So there's just no replacement for ethical behavior.
Yeah. I mean, this building that trust, and in my mind, trust is really what drives everything.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you about trust. Some of you remember Mark Barbash. Do you remember him?
Yep.
He was my boss at the state. And we have been friends, I'm going to say, for 25, 30 years. And we are having coffee together next week, just to kind of look at the past, the present, and what we can do together now. Human relations are everything, and especially if you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's super critical as you're trying to put these things together. So what are your thoughts about this kind of, I don't know, as a business owner, being maybe at a startup in an earlier stage? We've talked a little bit about this, but making sure that, you cross the I's and you dot the T's or whatever you're supposed to do. I guess that's backwards. But I mean, for folks that are in the audience or are watching this that are earlier stage, I mean, what would you tell them to do? Maybe the first 2 or 3 things.
Well, the first thing is to look at your lifestyle as it is right now. And is there room in your life to add another element to it? You would hate to start something that you couldn't finish. So sometimes it's not the right time to start a business. But if you feel like you've got the time, you've got the energy, and you won't be neglecting something important, then the first thing to do is to do the research. You start with research on that customer. Who is that customer? Where do they live? How do they live? What are their favorite colors? And I mean, really get to know that customer and find out if they need or want something else before you waste any time or money.
Yeah, that's for sure. So when you're working with folks on the business plan, how active do you want them to be in this? I get a lot of people that I want somebody to write my plan.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts there?
Well, you know what? I think it's because our educational system hasn't really done what it should have for literacy.
Yeah.
If a business owner has difficulty reading or writing or spelling, it's embarrassing to go in front of a professional person. And when you ask them to, fill out an application or bring me a business plan, and they don't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be so ashamed or caught up in ego to ask for help. That's why you got a SBDC.
Right.
Now, the other value of getting help is you get another perspective on what you're doing. It's really easy to think that your idea is the best thing since sliced bread. But you need to have someone else's opinion and say, I don't think we need any more rye bread. I think we need something different. And have that relationship. So it can be lonely just by itself or by yourself. It's better to have a partner or a collaborator. And don't be ashamed if you don't know how to spell. That's why they have spell check now.
Right.
That is one good thing about technology, is you can edit with technology. But to create the business plan, it's necessary, I think, to get a second opinion. And that's why I'm asked to do a lot of business plans for profits, not for profits, because I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. To that point, I was talking to the guest that'll be on the next Entrepreneur Spotlight, TJ Johnson, talking the other day and kind of prepping. She talked about, she came into this business. This really wasn't her thing. It just kind of happened and it became successful and she was very good at it. But the way she was able to be successful is by leveraging the services and the providers that were out there. So to your point about not trying to go it alone, and that's not just, when I was talking about too, it's not just building your internal team or maybe even your external team, which is important. It's just having those advisors to kind of bounce stuff off of, I think, is really important. She tells a story about an individual was with the minority business division at the state of Ohio that was doing, did their loan products, and he helped her write the stuff, put things together, went to the bank with her, the whole thing, just to kind of support her in what you're doing. And I think a lot of people think that, okay, well, I got to do this myself, or I'm afraid that somebody's going to say something that, I don't want to hear.
Absolutely. But you better get over that. You're going to have to do sales pitches and go into a lot of arenas by yourself. So go in there with your information correct, with your timing correct, and don't try to do it alone. Come in there with some credibility, some endorsements, maybe from a customer or from your bank or whomever it is. Credibility is everything as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And I think that, that credibility point is important, but it's important to really get the credibility up. You've probably seen, I've seen people come in, here's my business plan, and they have all these advisors on here, right? Big time advisors, high up people at Nationwide, high up people at wherever. They may be totally advisors, but are they just, are they really helping you? They made an impact. If I call them, are they really going to, have a lot of impact on what you're doing? Those are the ones you want.
Yeah. And I don't care what they say. I want to hear what you got to say in front of me. We'll get to that if necessary. But if I ask you what your value proposition is, and you say to me, what's a value proposition? Then we need to do some homework. We need to refresh your memory, if you ever knew what a value proposition was, so that when you do your sales pitch, you pitch it the correct way and you're able to impress someone. A business model. If you can't tell me what your business model is, then you got some homework to do. You got to have an idea of how you're going to make money. And that goes back to knowing that target customer.
Yeah. And, knowing that target customer, understanding that, doing the research, you're not guaranteeing that you're going to make money until you actually make money. But, it's a lot better and people will get it. And, you're going to have, if you're looking for financing or whatever, if you have a legitimately built out path to the market, it'll work, and then if you got to pivot, you got to shift when you get into it, that's fine. But, going in with, hey, I think this is going to happen, that doesn't work.
And you made me think of something else. When we launched Glory Foods at Parsons and Livingston, we knew what the maximum price would be for that target customer to buy a 16-ounce can of vegetables, so that we wouldn't go in there thinking that our product was the best thing since sliced bread and have it priced twice as high as everybody else. That wasn't going to work. Again, marketing research told us that. You have to pay attention to the environment. I just heard today, and I don't know if there's anybody in real estate on this call, that housing sales have dropped tremendously this year. You got to know your market. You got to know that customer. Milk, all kinds of things are going up in price. So know what's going on in the market. And that's from knowing that target customer and what they're up against.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we need to wrap up. We could stay on here for hours and doing this, and but it's been great. We've had a lot of activity, a lot of people asking questions. So I think we've made a significant impact here.
I'm glad.
I do want to thank the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center, Susie, Chaz, when they'll be here tonight. But I want to thank you guys for your partnership and the work that you're doing to support the ecosystem. And obviously, I want to thank all of the SBDC team and all the folks that are on here. And I want to thank everybody who's jumped on here, because you guys are the ones that are really out making things happen. So anything that we as an SBDC can be to support you, I'm sure Iris would echo the same thing. However we can do that. Iris, where do they got to go to find you?
It's Iris. I make it real simple. iris.cooper@att.net. I'm in the process of revamping my website. I have a new business plan product that I'm going to be launching that's fill in the blanks. But I'm in the middle of coming out of this COVID nightmare and getting my act together too. It's changed. Yeah. And so for right now, just use the iris.cooper@att.net until I'm ready to launch the other website.
Great.
I thank you all. I wish you all the best. And just pay attention to what's going on around you, and that'll really help you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being on here again. I appreciate it. I appreciate any time that we get to talk and catch up and share stories, because it always, this conversation today is not different than a lot of conversations that we normally have, and how we can make it better impact for small businesses. So again, thank you for everything you've done, everything you're doing. Congratulations on your Hall of Fame
I know.
induction. And
it doesn't take much in Evansville to be on the Hall of Fame, though. It's kind of like Groveport,
Well, that's a good deal too.
Yeah.
But so anyway, thank you guys. Thanks everybody for being here. Really appreciate it. Don't forget, if you have you want to catch this again, we're going to be putting this up on our YouTube channel. You can go to YouTube and search Ohio SBDC, and this and all the other episodes will be on there. So go check those out, and we look forward to working with you all again very, very soon. So thank you very much, and have a great day.